allegedly and reportedly has decided to cut its ties with Dr. Luke, the producer that has been accused of sexually assaulting Kesha. Now, his contract isn't supposed to be up for another year, but it seems like their reasoning for cutting ties with him, if they actually go through with it, there are some conflicting reports, seems questionable. It's not really about him allegedly sexually assaulting someone. It's more about the PR nightmare that they've been dealing with. Now, one source says Sony will likely terminate the contract due to the growing public pressures the label is facing amid the producer's legal battle with Kesha. The lawsuit has apparently become a public relations headache for the label. Now, one Sony source also talked to the media and said there is no contest. Kesha has no case in regards to her contract, but they can't afford the Adeles of the world out in the streets calling the label unsupportive. The fact that this hasn't already been taken care of is confusing, especially for people in the building. Okay, I wasn't around to comment on the Kesha story, and here's the thing. I don't know whether or not, like, no one knows whether or not she's telling the truth for sure, right? Mm-hmm. But if I were that judge, I would just give her the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, all she wants is to, like, end her contract. Mm-hmm. Just like, I know that we can't prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt, but just to be safe, just let her end her contract. What's the big deal? Anyway, that's the only...
But that's not how it works. Mm-hmm. Because they're not adjudicating the sexual assault case there. That judge has to rule on the contract, and the contract is clear. She's bound to be with Sony for as long as for the term of the contract. Yeah. So I'm sure that if he, like, you could prove out the sexual assault, that might affect a morals part of the contract. I don't know if it has one. Yeah. It might affect other things, but that was just not what was before the judge. So I wouldn't put it on that judge.
So interestingly enough, after that part of the story broke, Kelly Clarkson released some statements because she also worked with Dr. Luke. Now, she didn't claim that she was sexually assaulted and battered by him, but she did say that he was a jerk, that he was difficult to work with, she didn't want to work with him, and that Sony forced her to work with him.
What Sony's been doing here is terrible, okay? So when we first covered the story, I said, look, you can't make a decision on who you think is guilty or not guilty based on what we have, but it is not good for Dr. Luke that almost all the other women in the music industry have come out against him, mm-hmm. including women who have worked with him, saying, oh man, I'm totally on Kesha's side. That is not a good indication. And if you're a Sony, you think you might want to pay attention to that?
Yeah.
And this is not news to them. This, in the music industry, people have been talking about Dr. Luke for some time. And then you force women to work with a guy that others are saying, hey, does really questionable things with women. What, so you make an extra buck? I mean, the music industry is so scummy.
Yeah.
It's really, I mean, you've got all these guys who are used to abusing women, right? And there's been like a dozen cases, right? Dozens of cases. Mm-hmm. And then you got the guy who used to manage Cenk and Backstreet Boys, and he had to run away because he was molesting the people in the bands. And mm-hmm. yeah, I mean, what is it about the music industry? Okay, so those are the producers. But Sony has a bigger obligation. You can't be like, oh, that's a good producer. I mean, a lot of people think he might do sexual assault of the women that we put him in with, or in the other case, the young boys that we put him with, mm-hmm. but we're going to make a buck, right? That doesn't fly in any other industry. But in the music industry, it's standard fare.
Wrong again, Bob. I think that there's a lot of terrible things happening in the entertainment industry overall. And as you were talking about that, I thought about Terry Richardson, that photographer who's mm-hmm. had multiple celebrities come out against him because of, you know, basically sexual assault, you know, mm-hmm. and regardless of the accusations, big name magazines will still hire him and still work with him because they're convinced that he's the best. So I think that there's a broader issue, right? And it's something that you can think about when it comes to a lot of political topics that we discuss on the show. People think that if you deregulate things, then companies are going to do the right thing, right? Mm-hmm. The free market will decide. The companies will do the right thing. No, it doesn't work that way, okay? They don't care about morals or ethics or doing the right thing. They have a bottom line. And so if they think this is the best producer, if we can brush some stuff under the rug and keep working with this guy, we're going to do it, right?
And the only reason they're changing now is because they think that it might cost them more money if the Adeles of the world get pissed.
That's right.
And then they lose contracts with them. It's only a financial decision. So they get no credit for this. Belatedly, at the last minute, after working with this guy for years upon years upon years and forcing women to work with him, knowing his reputation, then they go, oh, we might actually lose a couple more dollars than we make. Okay, then now we're going to end our relationship with him.